Hello everybody, this is EyesDraws, and today we're here doing another drawing tutorial. Today we're going to look at all of the art supplies, how to utilize them, what the best platform is when using those, and also doing some exercises to help you get started into drawing inside of RecRoom. Alright, so the first thing we need to know is our art supplies in RecRoom. So the art supplies in Rec Room are quite limited. We only get a couple of things that we can draw with, but no fret, we can make them work. We can make some amazing and fun pieces. First, you're going to need to open your main menu screen. You will see something like this. We are going to look for the backpack, and then we are going to click on Use for the Maker Pen. It should spawn directly in front of you. Once we get that, we can open the menu hover it. At the bottom of the screen, we are gonna want to go to the palette and just click on it, and then it should take you to this shapes page. You are gonna want to go to your top right corner. There should be a little magnifying glass. Click it, and now we can search for our art supply. First thing we are gonna need is 3 different kinds of markers. There's the marker eraser, marker multicolor, and the magic marker. Right now, I suggest everyone to use the magic markers in the marker erasers. The marker multicolor was the old, you had to use your maker pen to recolor them rather than clicking on a button that's already on the marker like the magic marker. Next, we are going to need our other eraser. This one is the bigger eraser. So we are going to need that, and we are gonna need a paintbrush, which all you have to do is find paintbrush. Now I've made a couple inventions with paintbrush. These will not show up, but this will, I promise. Now, the paintbrush is similar to the marker multicolor, in which you have to utilize the recolor button on your maker pen to change the color of it. So keep that in mind. Oh, I spelled paintbrush wrong. Oh my gosh. Thing we're going to need is a drawing surface. There's actually several things that you can utilize. One of them is the canvas. You can get the art canvas or the square art canvas. There's also another canvas which I have saved in my maker pen that is only found in the dorm or the lounge. So if you want a larger canvas, like so, then you would need to go back to an old save of your dorm. Some other options for drawing, if you want to, you can do sticky poster. You can also get sticky note, and then you can also draw on a game table. These just have grid lines on them. They're, of course, like a table. The sticky notes are both fun to use and also not fun. If you draw on a sticky poster, you will have to freeze them, because if you touch it briefly with your hand, it will fall like immediately. So definitely freeze those if you're going to utilize them. For today, I'm going to use a regular square art canvas. Next, let's get into platforms. The first platform is VR, which is the most common to be used in Rec Room. This can be hard to get used to because it's like drawing on an invisible wall. While it's not impossible, it just takes some practice. Some of the artists is Shot Black and Eylon. The next platform is iPad or Apple products in general. It's similar to drawing traditionally. You can use a stylus. It also has pressure sensitivity, which is one of the ones that are most favorited by artists in Rec Room. The artists are also Crystal and Oatmeal. The next platform is a PlayStation or Xbox or in general controller device. This is the hardest to use on Rec Room. It's not impossible, but it takes a lot of time and it takes a really steady hand to use, which makes it harder. I also only know one person who uses this regularly, which is Scoogy. The next platform is a PC with a mouse or a PC with tablet. Using a mouse can be difficult, but with some practice, it does get easier to use. And with a PC tablet with a stylus is definitely easier. It also has pressure sensitivity. Some of the times, like my personal tablet, it does not come with that, or does not work with RecRoom. And the artist that I know is myself and Molly. The next platform is a phone, which can be difficult without a stylus, but it's not impossible. It definitely takes some practice to get used to. Smaller screens will throw off your anatomy and perspective, so just be aware of that. Also, make sure your phone can handle RecRoom. I know my phone, I'll be drawing and it'll get really hot, so just be aware that it will probably do that if you're using a phone. Alright, so another thing with these art supplies is that one thing you should do is when you're trying to draw is have some sort of setup. So right now I'm in my drawing studio. So I have my canvas in front of me and I have my markers, and one thing I typically do is have them on a clamp. Now, if you're in rooms 2, you aren't able to use a clamp. There's a way to do it to make it do something like this, but it's kind of a lot of circuits if I'm being honest. So probably work in rooms 1 for right now and then just transfer your canvas over to rooms 2 rather than the other way around. One other thing that you can do is if you don't know what to do or don't know where to start or don't know how to set things up, is grab a free invention. I have one uploaded to my profile. All you have to do is go to the People tab, go to Search Players, type in EyesDraws, this account, go to my portfolio, roll down, and then you will go to where it says Inventions. Now mine will show my private inventions. What you will do is type in art, and I have a bunch of free art supplies, and I have a bunch of free art boards that you can use to learn how to do some simple art basics, the art supplies. So both of these are free. You can just simply spawn it in. It'll come with a clamp, so it'll be how that I've shown you. It also shows some paintbrushes. It has the regular markers all in grayscale. It has the magic markers, 2 eraser markers, 1 regular sized and 1 smaller. It also has 3 eraser sizes. So when you have it in your maker pen, you're able to spawn it just simply. Now again, I put in the very simple basic red, blue, yellow, and black. Remember, you guys have to go to your regular tools palette or tools section and then click recolor. You won't be able to get the material on this, but you will be able to change the color. You have a set of preset colors that are just given to you in the game. You can choose one of these, or you can also click on custom, and then you can mess with the hue and saturation and even the value of things, making it darker or even lighter or brighter. So you can mess with the colors and things like that. This also applies for our markers, and you can just simply click on it and it will change the color. So now we have a green paintbrush. Now, one thing to note about paintbrushes is that the paintbrushes do not change their size. So right now they are regular and they make just a straight line, right? Now let's say if I scale this, does this do anything for us? Make it larger than the rest, right? It does nothing. So let's see, okay, what happens if I make a paintbrush small, right? Make it itty bitty. Does it change the size? No, it does not. So if you are wanting to use a paintbrush, you can't scale the paintbrush itself. It won't work. So what you will want to do if you're going to utilize the paintbrush is actually pull out your maker pen and change the size of the canvas. So we have our 3 lines. They didn't change anything. Now, the paintbrush itself, again, we made our board smaller. Now let's check the size of it. Boom, it's bigger. So if you manipulate the scale of your canvas, the bigger or larger your lines can get. So the smaller it is, the bigger your lines. And this applies to all of the drawing supplies. So we can also go ahead and test this with one of the markers. Again, we have this line. This is on a smaller size. Now, if I scale this up, make it bigger, and then we draw a line, it becomes thinner. So I get a lot of questions about how do I get my thin lines? The best thing to do is actually scale up your canvas. I do that every time. That's how I get any smaller details or anything like that. I scale up the canvas big to something about this size or even larger. It just depends on what I'm drawing or what I'm trying to do with it. But that's some interesting things with the canvas and the scaling of the markers and how you can manipulate some things to make it either more defined or if you're trying to fill in a larger space, something like that. And if you also, I personally use the matching markers for everything because I'm able to change the color while I'm on the board. So one thing to take note of, because I use my magic markers as a paintbrush, so I don't like to use the paintbrushes unless it's like to fill in the entire canvas before I'm actually starting a drawing. Otherwise, I just use the magic markers. And so what I mean by that is if I scale my board down, I can get closer and closer to the size of that original paintbrush, which is right here. Scale it back up. So that's just another thing. Typically don't really grab or navigate or go towards the paintbrushes. I just don't find them as useful as magic markers because again, you are able to grab the magic marker. You're able to color, let's say, something like this, and then I'm able to press the F and it'll bring up the menu. Mind you, I'm on a computer, so I'm using PC buttons, and then I'm able to change it to a light color or anything, and I don't have to leave like from drawing, and which is why I like to personally use the magic markers just for everything that I do rather than picking up my maker pen every time I want to change the color with a paintbrush. Another thing I would like to go over is the erasers. So all of the erasers are pretty useful. So the erasers, if you scale them bigger or smaller, that's about the size that you're going to get. So this is the regular size. So we'll just make some lines and then the like smallish one. As you can see, it does change the size. So these are the rectangular erasers. Now for the markers, they act the same way. Some VR players like to scale the marker erasers, especially on VR because it'll help them. Here's another one. The bigger one, again, these act as the same as the markers. So if I wanted to utilize the eraser markers, but I want it to be a little bit bigger, then I need to scale my canvas. And then my lines will be thicker, just like that. So again, those are the erasers, those are the markers, and those are the paintbrushes. And with the scaling of the boards, that's very important. A lot of people don't really realize that that's an important thing that I do or other artists do. It just makes it a lot easier. Those are all of your art supplies. Now, I want to get into some platform stuff. One way I'm going to show you guys is, first off, currently I'm on a computer, which means I have my Huon tablet hooked up to it. Now, one thing to take note is certain platforms don't have things, pin pressure or pin sensitivity or things like that. All right, so now that we know what all of our art supplies do, what platforms work and doesn't really work, I will demonstrate using my own platform, which is Huon Canvas 13, show how you can utilize some of these art supplies. First things first, I always start with a marker, magic marker. I always take and click on the black and then I go to custom and then I put the value all the way up. to kind of this light gray color, and then I start my sketch. So for today, since this is going to be kind of a quicker tutorial, I'll probably draw one of the Rec Room characters. So I think I'm going to draw a bat. Now, one of the things that I mentioned briefly is that I have art boards. These are things that I utilize in my realism art class. These things are free for students or for any creator who is interested in wanting to draw or learn or anything like that. So one of the topics that are within that, one of those art boards, it is simplifying your shapes. So for me, to simplify this bat, I am finding the shapes. So one shape is I have a square, but it has rounded corners. Another shape that I found is triangles for its teeth. And then another one is kind of this banana looking shape. These are all kind of simple forms that will hopefully help you begin drawing. Another thing that you can do when learning to draw, being more messy with it, it does not need to be perfect. Like here I've made straight lines rather than curving them like it is in the photo. So I'm having to correct myself. So now it's gonna look a little rough on the side. But we keep going and we keep trying to work at it. And that's the best policy, is to keep going and to keep trying. So as we continue this, we are going to just try and our best to make these shapes and then create these little bumps for it. So now we're kind of getting closer to the bat shape for Rec Room. The next thing we're going to try and do is eyes. So it actually has one bigger eye and one smaller eye. That looks kind of silly, but next thing we can do is add the eyebrows, just like so, and then continue on the side and grab that. One thing I need to do is add little ears. And again, these are just big triangles, big long triangles. We're going to add one there, and we're going to add another one. Try to make it a little even, but this one seems to be a little bit taller, so I'm going to try and fix that a little bit. I might make 3 ears. And then we are going to cut that just like it is in Rec Room. And then we're gonna make the inner part and just follow our same lines but giving a little gap there. Another thing is adding the pupils just like that, and we have ourselves a very simple bat. The next thing we can do is open our magic marker menu and outline it. We can outline it in black and then just try to make it a little more defined and try to clean up our lines. You could also go into a darker gray to finalize your lines and then go in with the black. I'm just gonna try and my best to make it look nice, kinda. And it doesn't have to look perfect. Again, we are just wanting to kind of find our shapes, find our groove with the drawing, and kind of have fun with what we're doing. So again, this may seem quite hard for you, but again, you have to just keep practicing. And I know you probably have heard that a lot, especially from artists, but you gotta understand that from our perspective, most of us, if not all of us, have started drawing and have been interested in drawing for a really long time, especially since we were children or younger people. We would take and draw in our spare time or, just in general take the classes in high school or just in general in school. So we just do this and do a quick little outline. You can always clean this up with your marker erasers, just like so, and then we can go around like this to get our wings in, and then we can add some simple little stuff here. And again, it does not have to be perfect. You can see where I am not making the most perfect line. Treat it as a nice little coloring book on it. And then we can finish off his ears real quickly. And boom, we got ourselves a cute little bat. Now, as I said earlier, one thing we can utilize is scaling. So I'm going to scale my board down actually to about, well, a little bit bigger. We're going to scale our things down and we're going to actually grab our eraser marker. So we see that I have a lot of gray lines everywhere. So we're actually going to use this tiny little marker as a way of getting rid of that extra. So I'm going to zoom in real close and I'm going to erase some of these extra lines and maybe clean up my black line if I need. Currently, right now, there is a slight issue with the eraser markers. It is not very noticeable, but it does pixelate things right now, so I would just be careful of that. But this is one way you can utilize these erasers, is if you need to erase something that's really small. That's how I best use it. The next thing that we can do is actually use our magic markers again. Again, I don't really use the paintbrushes too often. That's more of something I would do for a background. If I was going to do that, but right now I am going to make this bat. So I'm gonna make the, I think I'm gonna make the green one, the little green bat. So I'm just gonna grab any random green, kind of put it in the middle of the value, and I'm gonna start coloring. Now, I don't mind if I kind of go past my black. I can always fix that after and kind of get that smoothed out again if I wanted to, or I could just leave it be. But I'm just gonna color, and you see, since my board is scaled down, I can cover a little bit more than if it were to be scaled up. This is how I utilize a lot of my more extreme canvas sizes. I typically scale them down or scale them up to cover larger surfaces. So I'm just going to quickly go in with all of these colors, try and get this green in here. Alright, so now I have all of the green filled. I'm going to go in with the rest of the other colors and try and get to it where it's all completely filled. And then I will show you after what we can do next. Alright, so I have all my base colors done. One thing that I do now is once I have base colors, I actually scale up my canvas. And this is where I would add some details. So this would be shadows. It would be any like smaller details that it might have, things like that. So I am gonna have my light source, I think, come from down here. So I'm gonna just have that little arrow just to keep in mind where I want all of the light to go, and I will kind of color accordingly. So anytime I draw shadows or light, I try to keep in mind where is the light coming from, and then where would the darkness be. So the darkness would be on from, so this is our sun, we're gonna put a star, and this is our night, so I'm gonna put a moon. So our night is gonna go this way. So I am just gonna quickly color a bit of shadow on the black here. And I am not gonna go too detailed with this. Again, this is just something light you can do, or try to do, or practice to do. Again, I mostly just looked at the shape, so like most of these are squares, triangles, or honestly a big letter M or three little hills, something like that is what you can think of this as. So I'm just going to continue to color nice little shadows are, and I'm not going to focus too much on if it looks too pretty. I'm just going to, kind of do my own thing, make it my own. And we're going to continue. I might slight darker gray and just try and blend a little bit, but not too much. So I just barely moved my magic marker color. Now I'm gonna call that done. I could add some light down at the bottom. I think I chose kind of a too bright of a gray though for this, but we'll work with it. We'll blend it out. And I will do this with everything. I typically do like about maybe, I think I've done like 3 colors or so here. Or if no, I've done 4 colors so far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colors just for the black. If you want it to be really detailed, you need to continue to add colors. And one other thing is when you're doing this, keep in mind lighting, and keep in mind another thing you can do, but this is a little more tricky, and I don't recommend it all the time. Normally I just do what I'm doing now, which is mess with the value slider. But another thing you can do is actually change the hue. And because if you do something like that, like maybe I wanted to be a little more red or brown looking, I could put my slider up and actually put that color in there. But since my value is still down, it doesn't show or pick up as much. So I could do something like that, and that just adds a little bit more interest to your piece. Maybe there's like red lighting somewhere. That's just something fun you can do or mess with, that I would say experiment a little bit more. But now I'm just going to do this kind of shading all over, starting with the green. So again, my shadow is going to be more on this side where that honestly horrendous moon, almost Pac-Man, actually we'll say that this is Pac-Man, but this is moon at the same time. So and we're gonna put a lot of our shadows kind of on this side. And again, I'm probably just gonna use like 3 to 5 colors just to make it look like it's a little blended, but also not at the same time. If I wanted to do high blending, I would use more than 5 colors. But 5 colors is also a pretty good start, especially if you're just wanting to blend it. You could also do 3, so have your base, which is this green here, then have your shadow, and then you could have a highlight on one side. But if you add 2 more colors to kind of blend your shadow and your highlight into the base, it'll make it look even better. Need to put it down a little bit. So you can do something like that. And again, I'm just kind of scribbling it in. I'm not trying to make this look perfect or anything. I'm just making some lines. And then I'm gonna put some shadow kind of under their eyes and also under this eyebrow, just because I feel like it'll make the eyes stand out a little bit more, and I'm gonna do that with the mouth as well, just so you can kind of tell it's a mouth and have there be a little bit more of a shadow there. And then we're gonna add that in there. And then we're gonna add actually one more kind of blend color right here, just because I think that still looks a little too harsh. Now we're gonna add a highlight color, and we're just gonna put it right over here to blend. Alright, so now I have colored and did some simple shading. It's still looking a little rough around the edges, so I think I am gonna go back in and kind of outline it, but I'm not going to use a straight up black. I think I'm gonna just kind of outline using a green, then going in with that black, because I think it's just gonna be a little too harsh. And if I mess up on the outside, I can always use that tiny eraser But yeah, this took about 30 minutes to do just because I kept getting interrupted. Kind of how I utilize the art supplies and how I manipulate my canvas to kind of do some fun stuff. And I don't know if other artists utilize them the same as I do. I think this is like one of the slightly better ways of drawing. And there we have it. We have a cute little bat. I'm gonna grab this eraser and just erase some of these lines. Erase my Pac-Man moon. And then I see a couple of those stray gray lines, so I'm gonna just kind of use this eraser marker to kind of get rid of it. And then a little bit on this side, and then there's a lot of it on this side. Wait. And then there's a little bit down at the bottom. Another thing you can do is actually use the eraser as a way to add like some white highlight. Now, if this wasn't pixelated, it would probably look a little bit better. But that's one thing you can do as well, is use the eraser as a way of adding some tiny details. And that can just add like just a little bit of poppiness to it. But yeah, that's how you can utilize some of the Rec Room tools, Rec Room art supplies. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this quick little tutorial. And if you have any questions about what I've said, or just in general about art, or maybe even a suggestion of another art tutorial that you would like to see, just let me know and I can do my best to teach you guys. Thank you.